My name is Mark Zellefrow, and I'm a board-certified behavior analyst with the Oakland University Center for Autism Outreach Services. This week, I'm going to be talking to you guys about some different behavior domains that we typically look at and some potential skills that you can work on at home, as well as some strategies that you can incorporate to work on those skills. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to everyone that has given some positive feedback about the videos from last week. We talked about establishing daily routines, incorporating token economies, and some antecedent interventions and strategies that you can use at home. And I saw, again, some great feedback from that. Emails of parents kind of with they called it makeshift mommy ABA, which I loved to see and hear. So some great hand-drawn and handwritten schedules and tokens economies, and getting creative using stickers at home or some of their favorite candies, or different color dot stampers and all sorts of, again, great and creative activities and ideas that you guys came up with at home. So appreciate the positive feedback. I'm glad to see that you guys are able to incorporate some of these things into your kind of daily schedule and that they're working and they're effective and they're helping you guys out. So I loved the little makeshift mommy ABA term that someone used, and hopefully I can give you some more stuff today to continue working in a positive direction and on these things. So building upon kind of what we talked about last week, we're going to hit on some of the behavior domains that we typically look at and some goals within each of those domains and how we can incorporate maybe some visuals, keeping those token economies going. Maybe looking at adding in a social story and applying those to the skills we're going to talk about. So you might see some of these skills that they've already targeted at school, for example, or maybe they're working on them in ABA therapy or speech therapy, occupational therapy, or other related services that you might be getting. So that's great, and we love to hear that. As always, please, please, please feel free to reach out to your support team. Again, we're here from you and we love hearing from you. So if you are working on those things, great, continue on. If not, that is totally fine too. Maybe some of these skills your child has already mastered, or maybe they're still working on some great foundational skills. So let's go ahead and jump in. And the first behavior domain that we're going to talk about are some social and emotional goals that we can look at. So when we look at some, again, those social or emotional goals, I love to use social stories with these. Again, I'm sure many of you are familiar with social stories, so I won't dive deep into that. But incorporating those on the front end of an activity or a skill that might be a little more difficult for your kiddo is, again, a great way to help kind of prepare them. In addition to that daily schedule, we're going to go through the schedule, but when we're getting to a harder area, let's have a social story ready that we can read and go over kind of leading into that activity, and kind of giving some of those directions and examples of what to do and what we can do to help them get through it. So it's always fun to role play these. We can prompt some of these skills as well, and most of all, have fun with it. So we can look at like nonverbal communication, kind of, again, it's like an umbrella term. And under those nonverbal communication skills, we can look at maybe working on personal space, or we can look at what it means to be an active listener and what some of those skills are. We could talk about body language. I mean, how much of what we say truly comes from our body language versus the words that are spoken out of our mouth. So that's, again, a huge and fun one I love to work on. And also tone of voice. So kind of incorporating those three things together, a game I love to play with some of my kiddos is getting strips of paper, and we can write either single words or short phrases on the piece of paper and put those in one pile. Then we're going to write down types of body language. So maybe we're going to have arms crossed, or we can have our arms in the air, or like scratching a head, or maybe a hand on the chin. So different types of body language, again, writing those on a piece of paper and putting that in another pile, and then picking a different tone of voice or picking tones of voice and writing those down and putting those in a third pile. And then again, you get to pick one piece of paper from each pile and act it out. So maybe the first word is like, oh no. So maybe they're going to say, oh no, covering their mouth and really loud. So, oh no. Or maybe it's going to be sarcastic and oh no. Or again, maybe it could be scared, like, oh no. So again, it's all the same words, but incorporating a different tone of voice, different body language that might go along with that. And then again, kind of the influx or tone of voice. So that's a great game. Love to play, and works on some of those nonverbal communication skills as well as verbal communication skills. That segues in again just to some of those basic communication and conversation skills. So attending to whoever is speaking to you, practicing some of those active listening skills from up above we just talked about. Responding or initiating greetings and farewells is a lifelong skill that we all need to have. And again, those basic back and forth conversation skills, and again, kind of taking turns within the conversation, knowing when to pause, when to start, appropriate topics of conversation, appropriate language in those as well. So there's a great couple areas to work on. Looking at some self and emotional regulation, I feel like this is a huge, huge one that comes up with many families across the board. So looking at, okay, how can we help our kiddos to keep an open mind? How can we help them identify and recognize the emotion they are feeling, whether it's a happy and excited feeling, whether it's maybe a bored or anxious type of feeling, or maybe they're upset, angry, and mad. But helping them recognize and identify those emotions as well as ways to cope with those. One strategy I know that a lot of schools incorporate is a program called Zones of Regulation. And that's just a color-coded system. I believe it's blue, green, yellow, red. And in each of those domains, blue might be, again, you're tired or bored or sad. So recognizing those, and then some strategies that you can do when you're in the blue zone. When you're in the green zone, again, you're happy, you're content, you're kind of keep on keeping on. So what are some things you can do when you're in the green zone? Maybe you can say, hey, I'm happy, or you can smile, or maybe any other emotion, again, that when you're in that happy state, you can express and show. As maybe, again, something might be happening where you're working up and now you're in the yellow zone. So, hey, I'm getting agitated, or I'm starting to get a little upset, or I'm on edge, or I'm anxious about something. What's something I can do when I'm in the yellow zone to help bring myself back down to the green zone? So maybe it's saying like, I need a break, or I don't like this, I'm anxious. Taking some deep breaths, maybe giving some squeezes or some self-soothing type behaviors. And then the red is, again, mad, upset, angry, aggressive. And what are some strategies that you can do and they can incorporate to help kind of bring you back down? So again, that self and emotional regulation is such a huge part and an important thing that I see with so many people. Moving down, talking about some like situational awareness goals. So thinking about other people present in the room or in your area and just having that social awareness of who else is here. Kind of, we say like reading the room or the situation and adapting to that. So what I do at home with mom and dad is going to be a lot different sometimes than what I do when I am out and about in the community, or I'm at school, or in another type of gathering. Looking at kind of what's appropriate versus inappropriate behavior in a particular situation. So you can get a piece of paper and again, kind of talk about when we're at home, it's appropriate to do X, Y, and Z. But when I'm at school, not appropriate to do X, Y, and Z. So again, kind of looking at that and working on some of those, what's socially acceptable in one situation versus another. Perspective taking and friendship. So another thing I hear from parents quite frequently, is will my kid have friendships, or will they have friends, or other types of relationships as they grow up? So looking at that perspective taking in friendship area and helping to identify, what is a friend and who is a friend, as well as other types of relationships. So maybe friends versus acquaintances versus someone who might be a community helper or a teacher, family members, and kind of what each of those domains and areas and groups of people are and the roles kind of they play in your life and what's appropriate versus not appropriate maybe to tell these different people. What you would tell your mom and dad might not be something that you're going to tell a friend or a mailman when you see him on the road. So looking at what are those appropriate contexts and types of relationships and what can I share with different people. And kind of lastly for this area is problem solving. Again, this is another lifelong skill that we will always have, but looking at identifying problems as we're facing them. I mean, we all go through problems and challenges, so identifying a problem, identifying a remedy to that problem, taking action on that, and then either overcoming that problem and that barrier or compromising and coping with that uncompletion of the task or the problem that we were looking at. So I know that's a pretty loaded category, but that social and emotional kind of domain is such a loaded area. So I felt like it was important to go through a lot of those. So thanks for holding on. Next, again, we'll kind of hit on some communication skills and communication areas we can look at. When I'm working on these, I, again, love to use social stories for these, giving directions and examples of, again, what to do, not what not to do, and then role playing and prompting. And again, this can be another great fun area that we work on. So I'm sure you guys have worked on different things such as like requesting or demanding for desired items. Look at expressing wants and needs, how to appropriately gain attention from, again, maybe it's parents or caregivers or peers or siblings. Again, a lot of times kind of behavior and communication go hand in hand. So if we kind of see a disproportion or unbalance and maybe we have high challenging behavior but low communication skills, what can we do to help balance that out and teach those communication skills to replace some of those challenging behaviors? So again, also looking at expressing wants and needs, and that kind of can tie back up into some of that social and emotional regulation and problem solving. We can look at things like commenting on the environment. I know right now there's a lot of scavenger hunts and a lot of home activities happening. So now is a great time to look at, again, just some of that commenting on the environment and identifying things, again, within the home, but out and about in the yard or as you're going for walks as well. Of course, singing songs is always a fun one. And again, it can start out as little sing songs and moving up to more, again, like harder songs or interverbals and fill-ins and answering questions, reading books and answering questions, and jumping into our like reciprocal conversation skills like we talked about earlier. Moving down to some leisure activities. I feel like so many of our kiddos are constantly work, work, work. So they're at school, then they go to therapy, then they're at home working on therapy, and it seems like it's a never-ending cycle sometimes. So obviously leisure and play are such a huge component for everyone's mental health and sanity. So I love to use, again, a visual schedule for this. Task analysis, which we haven't talked about yet. But basically we're looking at taking a task and breaking it down into the individual steps and units within that activity, and using that as a visual to help guide us. Then looking at token economies as well as visual timers. So for play, again, we love to see parallel play, cooperative play, and like turn taking or working together to build maybe some type of item or reading a book together. Just anything that involves that cooperation back and forth is great. Then we could jump up to some imaginary play. Again, that's such a difficult skill for so many kids to learn, But once you start to see that emerge, it's amazing how much it takes off. Obviously, so like some sensory activities are also great. And again, you know your child and what kind of sensory needs or inputs that they, again, need or enjoy or can help themselves regulate. So that's always something I love looking at for some of those leisure and self-direct times. Some different recreational activities that they love or hobbies that they enjoy doing, as well as some like calming activities and yoga and meditation and things along those lines. Jumping down to daily living and adaptive skills. Again, another area that I would definitely put on that daily schedule that you make at home, using a task analysis as you're going through it, as well as a token economy. So when looking at personal needs, a huge thing that we're hearing right now is hand washing. So if we were to make a hand washing task analysis, again, kind of our makeshift mommy ABA, again, we would just have hand washing and all the individual steps of hand washing. So turn on the water, check. Okay, what do we do next? Next, we have to get our hands wet. Awesome. Next, we're going to get the soap. Next, we're going to rub our hands together. We're going to sing the ABC songs, rinse the soap off our hands, so on and so forth, for each step of hand washing. So again, the task analysis is a great, easy way to kind of give that visual representation and help sort of guide your kid towards independence. Another area, again, super easy to use a task analysis for is dressing. So as they're getting dressed for the day, what do you put on first and what is your order of events? So maybe some kiddos, it's, okay, first we get on our underwear, then we put our pants on, then we put on our shirt, then we put on our socks, and then we put on our shoes, and now we're dressed. And at the end of each of those activities, that would be a great time to award them with a little token or a check mark on their token economy. So again, setting up that daily schedule each morning, using your task analysis to work through some of those activities, and then kind of rewarding them on their token board. And these are prime examples of some mommy makeshift ABA. So you don't have to have a computer. You don't have to have a fancy program with amazing visuals and print pictures and all this stuff. It can be done by hand. And you can practice your art skills with some little hand-drawn items as well. That is totally fine. Again, a couple of the emails I got back, parents took pictures of their task analysis or token economy and daily schedule and just hand drew, again, little iPads or pieces of certain games that they love, or little shoes for going for a walk, some bananas and goldfish for snack time. So again, it does not have to be anything fancy. It can be our kind of mommy makeshift ABA handwritten, and it will be just as effective. Jumping back in, I guess, a little bit more to that daily living and adaptive skills. We talked about, again, some of those personal needs. So hand washing, toileting, self-feeding is a huge one. We hit on dressing. Looking at some age-appropriate grooming. So it's now a great time to start working on brushing your teeth or brushing hair. And like, again, working on or towards independence on those things, or helping with some basic chores. There's so many things that you can incorporate into something as simple as cleaning up after dinner time. So maybe is your kiddo helping wipe down the table, or maybe are they simply bringing their fork and spoon to the sink and putting it in the sink, or are they at an age or level that they can help load the dishwasher. So mom or dad or brother and sister are cleaning the dishes and then handing to your other child, and they're putting the silverware in the silverware drawer, or the bowls up top, or the plates down low. Maybe after you're done running the dishwasher, they can help sort the dishes or silverware. So maybe they get to put away the forks and spoons, and again, you have that drawer open and they get to pick and see, okay, here's all the forks, here's all the spoons. Love doing that one with families, as well as with laundry. So sorting maybe the socks versus the shirts versus the pants. So there's some basic sorting, or you can sort by color. So all the darks, all the whites, and all the colors. Again, some more basic sorting that you can incorporate questions about as well, or any targets that you guys might be working on with ABA or speech or OT or other relevant providers. I think that's good for the laundry and dishes and stuff. But again, you can see how you can incorporate matching, sorting, labeling, answering questions about it. There's so many skills that you can just incorporate into one little activity. It's great. And then lastly, hitting on some academic things. I know you guys are having to juggle right now being a parent. Maybe you're working from home. Add on teacher skills, add on therapy skills, and you have a very full plate. So obviously we give you our biggest praise for taking that and handling that. And again, hopefully you can incorporate some of the strategies I've talked about today, or your therapy team has introduced you to as well, to get through some of these academic goals. And whether it's just sitting in a chair and finding a space to work, or completing worksheets, again, using those token economies would be a great time to use those. Cooperating with you to finish those instructions. Maybe they're working on independently completing them. That would be amazing, and that is great. Or again, independently asking you for help, or independently turning in work. And maybe even they're at a level that they're doing some self-monitoring, and maybe they're using a to-do list and checking those things off, or they're checking in their own email. Maybe they're checking their own email to see what are my assignments for the day, getting your assistance to maybe download them or get them started, and then independently working through those and then bringing you back to help turn those in. I know we have kiddos of all different levels that we're working with right now. So hopefully all of those different behavior domains, some areas within each domain is applicable to you and your kiddo. And again, maybe you find one goal from each area that you can work on, or hopefully it sparked something new that you hadn't thought of before. Or again, just maybe gave you a little more encouragement to continue on what you're doing. You guys are all doing a great job, doing your best. And again, I know your kiddos appreciate it. Your family members are doing a great job of working together during this. And I can't wait to hear how this goes this week. See if you guys pick any goals from here, incorporate any of the strategies that we have talked about. And I can't wait to share what we're going to do with you guys next week. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great week. Bye.